This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Xcast. I'm your host for today, Andrew Blaker. Today we will be discussing episode 39, which consists of the season 4 episodes Teliko, as well as Unruhe. With me today is our Xcast guest, Amy Walker. Hello, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing good. I'm really looking forward to talking about these episodes.
Absolutely. Well, I guess we'll just go ahead and plunge on in if that's all right. Our first episode, it is episode 3 of the 4th season, titled Teliko, if I am pronouncing that right. First aired on October 18th, 1996, written by Howard Gordon and directed by James Charleston. This episode concerns Mulder and Scully's investigation into a slew of African-American men who have disappeared, and when their bodies are found, they are drained of pigment. And the question kind of facilitates between, was it a disease, is it a murder, where does the answer lie on this? So, Amy, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I really enjoyed it. On my rewatch, it's one that most of the time when I watch it, it's in the middle of doing a big run of X-Files, so it doesn't stick in my memory as being that good. I think possibly because it comes straight after Home, which is awesome.
Yes.
But just watching it on its own today, it's a really good episode. It kind of surprised me how creepy it is and how well put together.
Absolutely. I just rewatched this last night, and I hadn't seen it probably for a good long time. Just kind of always thought that it was kind of, an average Monster of the Week, nothing real special. But I mean, I think it suffers from the fact that it does follow Home and it does precede Unruhe, and it's certainly not the strongest episode of the 4th season. That's probably because there are so many episodes that are so well revered in season 4. But I feel like it's pretty underrated. I mean, it's kind of an absurd plot. I'll give you that. But in terms of the procedural element of the show and how the action unfolds, I was engaged the entire time, which I think has to do with, like I said, that procedural element. Even if you don't find a lot to love in the plot per se, there's some interesting angles to the story. Probably the one that stands out to me most is the myth arc element to it. I mean, we have I believe this is the second appearance of Marita Covarrubias. She approached Mulder in Herrenvolk, which was a couple episodes before this, following the death of X. So, he reaches out to her here on a standalone case, but, with ideas that this is some part of a larger conspiracy. Any favorite elements, Amy, that stand out to you from the episode?
I liked how the action unfolds towards the end. When they go in the... it's not a construction site, it's a destruction site, isn't it? They're tearing the building down.
Yes.
The sort of creeping through the tunnels and the air vents was very atmospheric. The bit where Scully sort of shines the flashlight round and he's coming at her through the tunnel in the full sort of pale makeup with the pink eyes was really off-putting. And it was nice to see Scully there saving Mulder, who'd been incapacitated for once, rather than it being Mulder saving Scully, how it normally is. She got the chance to be the hero at the end, and yeah, I enjoyed the fact that they kind of changed that up as well.
Yeah, and I thought that final scene there, I mean, where Mulder is, pretty much paralyzed, he can't speak, he can only use his eyes, and his eyes are kind of just, he's just moving them around, trying to convey that sense of, there's someone behind you, and she gets it only by looking into his eyes, and I thought that was a really unique touch, and I thought, for the shipper in me and possibly you, it was a nice moment to see that communication, very subtle and very much under the radar. The teaser is excellent, I thought. And like I said, it had been a long time since I'd seen this. And this is one of the few episodes where the tagline, "The truth is out there," is not the tagline. It is, and I am not going to be able to say this right, but it is deceive, inveigle, and obfuscate. And it's a hard one to say, but I hadn't realized that. A little bit of trivia there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a strong episode, very much so. And you know, like I said, it's one of those where the idea itself, you know, some people might find it interesting, some people may not. But in terms of the action, it keeps up pretty well, and I was kind of surprised to rewatch that and not be bored by it, which I remember being bored by it the first time, but I think that was simply because, you know, it's following up Home, which is a tough act for any episode to follow up, and so by that comparison, it's going to be a little bit of a letdown, but it's a solid episode in its own right, I think.
I think the fact that it keep the mystery going throughout it as well. Like, even though Scully's been brought in to investigate as a possible disease, and straight away we know it's not, it kind of keeps you going as to what it could be. It's like, is this killer supernatural, or is it, like Mulder says at the end, he's like a genetic abnormality, kind of like Toombs in that regard. It's like, until it gets right to the end, you don't know which way it's going to go, and that kind of gives it a little bit more to stand on rather than a straightforward monster of the week.
Absolutely. I think so, definitely. Is there anything else that stands out this episode worth mentioning?
The only thing that stood out for me was Carl Lumbly is in the episode as well. He plays the is it like social worker, the guy who's helping to patriate
Yes
people. He obviously goes on to, probably most recognisable to a lot of people as Dixon in Alias, the J.J. Abrams show, but he also went on to voice Martian Manhunter in the Justice League series as well, so quite a few people will probably be familiar with his voice, if not his face.
Well, with that, I think we can move into our next episode, which is episode 4 of the 4th season, titled Unruhe. This first aired October 27th, 1996. Written by Vince Gilligan, directed by Rob Bowman. Now, one thing worth noting on this, too, the production numbers for the episodes are different. For Teliko, which we just discussed, it's actually production episode 4. It was the 4th produced, the 3rd aired, and Unruhe was actually the 2nd produced, but the 4th aired. So they kind of shifted around like what they did this most recent season 10 for the event series. They filmed it and then aired them a little differently for, I don't know if that has to do with the story or just some creative decision. But anyway, discussing Unruhe, the episode where psychic photography, it's a series of evidence, photographs depicting the seemingly psychotic fantasies of a killer. The people have their picture taken and end up dead moments later. What are your thoughts on this episode, Amy?
I really enjoy this episode. I was really glad when I managed to get my name down for this episode for that one. It's one that always sort of stuck out in my memory when I think of the X-Files, because it's one of those ones that walks that fine line between being almost a standard serial killer story, but it puts that little element of the paranormal in there, and it just ups the creep factor to a point where it makes it even more chilling.
Absolutely. I mean, this like I said, it's a very strong episode. Definitely one of the standouts of the 4th season for me. And like you said, it's very creepy. So we have Jerry Schnauz, who is a construction foreman, who emerges about midway through the episode as the primary suspect, played by Pruitt Taylor Vince. And again, this is, it's creepy for a number of reasons for me. Starting first off with the ice pick, when Scully discovers that the victim they found wandering along the road, Mary, I believe it is, the first victim in the teaser. She's wandering around the road, unresponsive, almost zombie-like, and they find that she was the victim of an ice pick lobotomy. And that alone is very chilling, because it was a very common procedure back in the day until it was discovered it had zero merit and actually caused a heck of a lot of destruction. But I think for me the most creepy scene of this entire episode, and one that I was reminded again, I watched it last night, is the scene with when Scully enters the construction site that she encounters Jerry at. She's talking to Mulder on the phone. He comes in on those stilts, and Mulder's sharing with her, it's someone with very long legs. And I don't know, something about that moment, just when she looks back in recognition of the fact that this is the guy they're after, looks into his eyes. His eye, he's got like I don't know if it's a lazy eye or, it's twitching, and she whispers Unruhe. And I just thought that was such a well-crafted moment in that episode.
Yeah, I think it's those little moments that help make it stand out as well. Like the way that whole scene is staged, where it's just the two of them in the building, where it's got the long wide stairs and the sheets hanging. It just sort of stands out and makes that scene really, really sort of stand out, and it gives it that extra little flair that a lot of the episodes sometimes lack.
Absolutely, yeah. And then, it becomes really a pretty emotional episode with the fact that, the mystery unfolds about, these Polaroids. What's in the background? It looks like, ghouls of some kind, and the man on stilts, and a mystery face in there. And it seems like, you can't possibly address all the elements of this, but they do. And it's very... it's its own form of psychological horror to me, I think. And then, of course, at the end with, Scully, the damsel in distress, so to speak, that's particularly powerful in this episode, because she, like I said, she was the one that she knows the science behind what he's doing with the lobotomy and everything. And I just thought it was a really, really good episode. And I think that the guest star, Pruitt Taylor Vince, and I'm not sure what else he is in. He's not familiar to me, but I can say he's, an excellent pick for this character. Congenial enough seeming guy, and yet, by the end of the episode, just a great pick on the casting of that.
He was really good in the role. He played the menacing, yet almost sort of innocent and as much a victim of his own psychological issues, to the point where he could have been a very sympathetic character as well as a very terrifying character, and the psychological aspect is done really well. I know, having looked in the episode, that they said they wanted to sort of do their own version of Jacob's Ladder, the horror film, and they got him from that. And some of the images in the Polaroids and the way he plays things, it does sort of remind me of that film, which is incredibly creepy, and I think that helps the episode a lot as well.
Yeah. Well, anything else about these two episodes? I guess for me it's just, Teliko, probably the lesser of the two. Certainly, I think probably in terms of, how fans behold it, certainly lesser than Unruhe, but I think both on their own are pretty strong episodes. I guess for me, I've always enjoyed the episodes where there's the procedural element to it. And you have that pretty strong in both of these episodes, and yet they also are capable of kind of, diverting from the formula and standing out in different ways. The psychic photography theme for Unruhe is, I think they revisit that again. There's shades of that echo on in later episodes. I'm thinking Tithonus in season 6. So I think it's just, a really good, really strong episode. And of course you have Vince Gilligan, who doesn't ever really do anything wrong with the X-Files, and Rob Bowman. So I think Unruhe for me is the stronger of the two episodes, but overall a pretty solid entry for both.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. It's I was surprised with how good Teliko was compared to how I remembered it, but they're both really, really good episodes, I thought.
Well, Amy, it has been great talking with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I want to give a shout out to our group on social media. If you want to follow us, our Facebook group is X-Files Basement, the XCast podcast fan group. We are also on Twitter as well. Great conversations going on, especially right now with news, leaking in about season 11 and everything. So please join us, and we look forward to seeing you in future episodes. Thank you.